They didn't conquer power. They didn't earn it through strategy, leadership, or popular support. Power was handed to them at birth, unchallenged, unquestioned, and unlimited. For centuries, societies believed that hereditary rule guaranteed stability, that bloodlines would preserve order. But again and again, history tells a different story. When absolute power is inherited without limits, it doesn't just fail. It becomes dangerous. Short, powerful phrases to maintain rhythm and impact. Would you trust the fate of millions to someone simply because they were born into the right family? What happens when the person at the top has never been tested, never been held accountable, and never been told no? By understanding the patterns behind history's most dangerous heirs, we can see why inherited power so often leads to instability, catastrophe, and collapse, and why this lesson still matters today. From ancient kingdoms to sprawling empires, hereditary systems emerged as a solution to chaos. When rulers died, passing power to their children promised continuity. No succession wars, no uncertainty. Just a seamless transfer of authority. In theory, it was efficient and orderly. In practice, it assumed something deeply flawed, that competence, judgment, and restraint could be passed down like a crown. What these systems truly guaranteed was not stability, but inevitability. Regardless of intelligence, temperament, or preparedness, the heir would rule. Over time, this removed one crucial element from leadership: accountability. A ruler who does not need to earn power rarely learns how to wield it wisely. The danger becomes far greater when inherited power faces no institutional limits. In many empires, there were no constitutions, no effective parliaments, no independent courts capable of restraining the ruler. The heir stood above the law. Their word became policy. Their impulses became national decisions. In such systems, mistakes weren't corrected, they were enforced. Advisors existed, but only to the extent that they pleased the ruler. Opposition wasn't debated, it was eliminated. Absolute authority turned personal flaws into systemic threats. The problem wasn't just bad leaders, it was a structure that amplified their worst traits. From the moment they were born, heirs were shaped by isolation. Raised in palaces, separated from ordinary life, they were taught they were different, chosen. Surrounded by servants, tutors, and courtiers with their own agendas, they rarely encountered honesty. Praise replaced feedback. Obedience replaced challenge. This environment distorted reality. It created rulers who struggled to understand suffering, compromise, or consequences. Many grew paranoid, convinced that everyone around them was a potential traitor. Others developed unchecked egos, believing their desires were indistinguishable from the needs of the state. When such minds inherit unlimited power, the results can be devastating. Short, powerful phrases to maintain rhythm and impact. Few figures illustrate this more clearly than Caligula. When he became emperor of Rome, he was welcomed as a symbol of hope. But with no meaningful restraints on his authority, his personal instability quickly turned into public terror. Executions became spectacles, humiliation became governance, violence became routine. Caligula's actions weren't stopped because there was no system capable of stopping them. His whims carried the force of law. Rome didn't suffer because he was cruel alone. It suffered because the structure of power allowed cruelty to rule unchallenged. His reign showed how easily personal instability can become state policy when power has no boundaries. Short, powerful phrases to maintain rhythm and impact. Danger doesn't always come from madness or brutality. Sometimes it comes from weakness. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia inherited absolute power at a moment when his country desperately needed decisive leadership. He had neither the temperament nor the skills required to govern a vast, unstable empire. Faced with political unrest, military failure, and economic hardship, Nicholas hesitated. He avoided difficult decisions and relied on outdated beliefs about divine authority. Because power was his by birth, not by ability, there was no mechanism to replace him. His indecision allowed crises to deepen, unrest to spread, and trust to collapse. Short,
powerful phrases to maintain rhythm and impact. The result was not just the fall of a ruler, but the fall of an empire. Millions suffered, and the Russian Revolution reshaped global politics for generations. Inherited power didn't protect Russia from chaos, it accelerated it. In Spain, the danger of hereditary rule took a different form. King Charles II inherited not only a throne, but generations of genetic and institutional decay. He was physically and mentally incapable of ruling, yet the system demanded continuity at all costs.
The Spanish Empire stagnated. Decision-making slowed to a halt. Foreign powers waited, watching a giant weaken from within. When Charles II died without a clear successor, Europe was plunged into the War of the Spanish Succession, a conflict rooted entirely in the failure of hereditary logic. Here, inheritance preserved power, but destroyed effectiveness. The system valued bloodline over competence, and the consequences were international. The cost of these failures were never confined to palaces. When heirs made reckless decisions, it was ordinary people who paid the price. Wars sparked by pride, famines worsened by neglect, revolts crushed with force, borders redrawn in blood. Millions lived and died under the consequences of choices they had no power to influence. The danger of inherited authority wasn't theoretical, it was painfully real. Power passed down without accountability didn't just fail leaders, it failed entire societies. What history makes clear is this: the true danger isn't only the individual heir, it's the system that places absolute power beyond challenge. Hereditary rule removes the need to prove competence, to listen, or to adapt. It assumes stability while eliminating correction. When power cannot be questioned, it cannot improve. When leadership is guaranteed, it does not evolve. Over centuries, this pattern repeats with remarkable consistency, regardless of culture or era. Again and again, history shows us that inherited power without limits creates leaders who are unprepared for the responsibility they carry, and systems that are unable to protect themselves from those leaders. Short, powerful phrases to maintain rhythm and impact. The lesson is not that all heirs were villains, or that all hereditary systems failed instantly. It is that unchecked inheritance is a risk built into the structure of power itself. A risk that has reshaped empires, cost millions of lives, and altered the course of history. When power is never earned, it is rarely questioned. And when it is never questioned, it becomes dangerous. History doesn't just record these failures, it warns us about them. The question is whether we are willing to listen.